6 months ago, this was our Victorian living room, and today I am slowly turning it into our cozy vintage home using mostly thrifted items and also things that just means a lot to me and my family. From mood boards and flea market curtains to crochet blankets and rescued furniture, I want to show the process of how I laid this room into something magical. So when we first moved into this house 6 months ago, it has previously been used for what we're calling an HMO. If you don't know what that is, it's a house of multiple occupants. And I have counted that I think there was sleeping up till 7 people in this home. So you can imagine the wear and tear that it will take. And I will also say the house looked nothing but what you will see here today. When we moved in, there were beautiful vinyl floors. Underneath the floor in the hallway, you would find tiles that were glued to the original pine wood floors. So it was a welcome surprise when we finally stripped the floors in this living room to see that there were actually original Victorian floors, and it just needed some love and attention, and that's what we gave it. So if we're starting out by looking around this living room, what you will see is it's actually 2 rooms that are put together. So when we first moved in, there were one big wall dividing the 2 rooms, and we've now had to take the bearing wall down and add steel in the construction to turn things into just 1 room. So if we're taking a look over here, you will see a secret little light well. And why does it have that? Well, first of all, you should know that this is only 167 by 167 meters long and wide, which means it is about 3 square meters. And the reason for having it is, of course, this was 1 room. So if this was to count in the ground plans for being a room, you need a window and access to the outside. So here we go. Now I think this is where a lot of the opportunities lie in the house. So we have actually put in a bigger door to get more light into the room. We have also added, which you'll see over here, some beautiful lights out here on the wall. And up here we also have an old vintage lantern, and it's so cool because at night you really get that sparkle. The ground is not yet done, so it is the plan that the garden is on the next, that we will get these beautiful herringbone stones laid out there so it matches the back garden. And at that point the plan is to buy an old vintage iron cast bench that we can put out here with lots of plants, and really I can sit from here and look through the other door, which is over there, and maybe drink my wine and just see Ben cook me dinner, which will be fantastic. So of other things that we've had done structurally to the house, you will see we have the main back wall here, and this is of course the steel where we come in from the other room. So we had to close off this door, which just makes sense. You only want 1 door into a room, and that makes space for us so we can have a full couch and plants and whatever else we need. It's always, you can never have enough wall space. The next thing that was really problematic were our windows, and they look great now. There we go, and I'll show you the curtains in a second. But what happened during the build were that this was all ugly PVC windows, as you will have it when someone has just cheapened everything together. And I remember saying to the builder, so what's behind all of that PVC? And he was like, oh Jessie, you know,
you should only look if you really want to know.
Did I want to know? Yes. Did I really want to know? Possibly not. So we look behind the PVC, and he looks at me and I say, what? And he goes,
there's nothing. And I'm like,
what do you mean? And he says,
well, there's absolutely nothing.
So it turns out that we have bought a house with absolutely no insulation around the windows, which by the way, also turns out that the original window rock guy has put in inside out. Anyways, we got our insulation in and our very crafty carpenter ended up building these beautiful wood frames around. So now they look really nice and old and sturdy, and I just love the look of them. And it's really lifted the visual presence of the room. The last structural thing we had done, or kind of structural, before we went crazy with colors and wallpapers and polishing up the floors and putting up the cornice around the room to give the old feel, were actually this entire wall. Because when we moved in, there was not an entire feature wall. It was just a square room, or like a long room. So we had to put that in. Now, our very skilled builders built the entire fake chimney, and they built the shelves, and I am very aware about the presence of light in a room and what effect that has when you're designing a room. So under the shelves, we actually have under lights. It's just some normal strips. I'm not sure I like them that much, but the idea is that it gives backlights to your decorative items and what have you. And in theory, it works well, but I just don't think it's the best strip. So maybe at some point I will change them. But I think there's something in the way that it is there and it draws your eye in and it lifts it, because otherwise shelves like that very often can feel like a dark hole or somewhere where you don't really want to look. So in this way, it really gives every subject its own presence. The other thing I'm really proud of is actually the fireplace around, the hearth, and also the old wood burner, which I have renovated myself. So I got my hands dirty when I did that one. And I think it just brings character back to the room. It's very deliberate that this was kept in white and cream colors. So it's actually the same white, which you will find around the corners in the room. So that kind of binds the room together. Now the tiles are also really, really cool. I bought them on Facebook Marketplace. And the thing, when you're buying things off Facebook Marketplace, these tiles are old, but they also had very specific specs. So they were each 11.2 centimeters, and that meant for the other tiles that would sit in between and kind of divide them out, I would need to find something of the exact measurement. So I was so pleased when I found these tiles in this very nice warm cream that just complements the wood burner. So by mixing something new with an old feel and these original tiles, I just think we have created the most fantastic look, and I am so proud of it. I will give a caveat, and maybe it's because I'm Danish. I originally wanted to be able to put a biofuels burner inside our log burner just for the winter, so we could have this nice hygge time, which I'm all about embracing, because hey, I'm Danish, and if I can't, then who can? So the guys didn't realize, I mean, who doesn't realize you're gonna have fire in a fireplace? But they didn't realize, so it's all wood. So now I am burning candles inside it, but still gets a bit of a good effect, and it's nice. In terms of the hearth, I think it's nice to keep things reasonably simple. Maybe that's my Danish side, but when you're having designs in the old Victorian houses, very often you see people going crazy on the maximalism. So you want a crazy pattern on the hearth, and then a crazy pattern in the backsplash, and a crazy colored oven from some French knick-knack store. And I think it becomes too much. I think you gotta give weight to an item where the oven here, in this case, is the one that shines. And then the hearth is just giving nice shape and texture by having, you know, the diamond kind of pattern in it, but like nothing crazy. And it also gives breathing space again to the old tiles in the back. And I think that's really chic. So one of the big problems you will have when you are living in London and you are having a lower ground bay window and it's out to the main road is actually that everybody, we're on a big road, can look straight into your living room. And of course, you don't want to feel exposed in everyday life. You want to be able to sit and watch your TV and do whatever you do without having people staring right in through your window. And one of the things you figure when you buy a house is, holy moly, curtains are expensive. So I am not like very professional in terms of sewing things, but I have good optimism in me. So I went out on a vintage flea market. As you guys know, I do this all the time when I resell for my Etsy and I pick up stuff for you guys. So at this occasion, I actually bought this amazing old French linen embroidered tablecloth. And I have split that into 4 pieces. So you will see we have the middle piece and then we have each side. And I've just made cafe curtains. And what works so well is, first of all, in the bottom of the curtain, it gives weight by having this kind of extra heavy, I don't know if you call it embroidered border. And it gives texture with the embroidery, which is so cute. And when you look at the house from the outside, you will just notice it. And it really gives character to the home. I think they are so cool. And I will say again, thinking about light in a room, because typically these Victorian houses can become really dungeony if you're not careful, but actually putting a very white linen, a hint of cream to go with the rest, but putting that in the window, it bounces light into the room. And I remember I was standing with Ben when we were hanging them, and he said, it's fantastic. Like, it feels like we're actually gaining light rather than blocking out light. Now, the future dream for the window is to keep these so they're fairly neutral, but in terms of building on the color scheme, I've found some curtains which I'd like to do proper gathered heavy curtains. And curtain has a functionality in your room as well, right? It keeps it warm at winter. It is an old Victorian house, and yes, we got insulation in, but it's not a magic one, so we need something to keep us warm. So one of the big projects is actually to sew proper curtains here, but I'm probably going to need 25 meters of fabric, and fabric these days are, I don't know, if you're lucky you get it at 50 a meter, but sometimes it's 150 a meter, and then you do the math and it's crazy, and you need the blackout linen in the back and what have we. So that's it's a whole one for later on when we save some money. Now, one thing I can really recommend is for these curtain rods. I bought them at Etsy. So they are brass, and the seller was amazing. So they are doing them to specs. So we could just pin them into the window frame and slide the curtains on. So super easy installment, but it's something I'm really proud of. And I think this vintage item specifically brings character into our home. So of other thrifted items, you will mostly see them around on my shelves. So I have recently picked up this very old, beautiful painter's doll. And what's quite unique about this one is how old it actually is. So when you're picking up painter's dolls, you got to be careful that you're not taking the IKEA version. But this fella in particular, you can see he has some patina just around his body. The color is a little bit darker, and I just think he has a lot of character in his feet. It's also quite, you know, they're quite well made when his joints literally follow a body, so you can't, you know, he can stretch the arm like I can stretch my arm, but other than that, he's just, you know, he can bend his arm like you and I can bend our arm. So he's very real, and I'm guessing that he's dating all the way back to the 50s, could be earlier, but I don't want to like put my name on the line for it. So what often happens in our home is that I say to Ben, we have things for borrow because everything gets sold on the Etsy. So right now we are borrowing this beautiful guy, the beautiful Siamese brass cat. And down here, you will see we're currently borrowing from the Etsy shop this very cool horse painting. It is of a newer frame. So this one is probably from the 70s, maybe even all the way up to the 80s, but it does have the gilded frame, and it's It's so cool, and I know what's going to happen when Ben sees this, because this is a new one from today's thrift. He's going to say, oh, we're going to hang it up on the wall, we're going to keep it. But I like to borrow, and that's how I decorate my home. So I want to have a proper look at what I call our reading room, and this room is a little less finished than our blue living room or sitting room, if you're push. But the thing is, when you are moving into a house, it gotta be a journey, and I would ideally for this video have loved to have the perfect gallery wall, right? But we've lived here for 6 months, and truth being told, a lot of the art that we have from our past living in a London flat is modern prints, and they don't feel right in this room. So we have some things. So if you take this piece of art here, is something that means a lot to me. I used to work in an art school when I was younger, and I was the model, like I was the doll on the up there, right, that they would be painting. And the artist gave me this one at a very special occasion. I'm so grateful. I had it for 20 years. So those are the things you keep. And I think in terms of the color scheme, we have the blue, we have the red, and we have the yellow. So that works really well. It's fun and quirky. If we are looking at down here, you will see we have a old traffic light. Ben and I, when we first met, we went thrifting together. Oh God, you know I love a thrift. And we found this amazing American traffic light, and I could have sold this 400 times, I think. Every time people enter the room, they're like, oh, that's really cool. But what you can see is that the colors works really well together. So yeah, and it does work. I should say it does work. You can turn it on and off. So yeah, that is a modern piece, but I think sometimes it's also allowing yourself to take your history with you, find some items that makes you really happy, and just smash it together. And you don't have to have all of these rules. The only rule I do have, being Danish and a maximalist, is how do you balance elegance with quirk and maximalism. And if you're looking over here, the plan is that we want 2 proper armchairs. Right now we're just having a nice little side chair to take up space. But you know, when you're moving into a new house, you realize how much extra furniture you actually need. And I always say building a home takes a lifetime. And instead of just running out and buying something on the cheap that is not really what we want, we're taking our time. And I think often when we're looking at YouTube for these videos about see my pitch perfect living room design, it's fantastic to see them, but reality is that it actually just takes a long time to do these things, and we got to live in it also to understand what works for us, what is it that helps our day-to-day just make sense. One of the funny things you'll often hear me say in these videos are that I do not really like teak and Danish furniture too much. I think I just grew up with it as a kid, and it's done something where it reminds me too much of childhood, and you know, but this particular piece I found to be in really good nick. It's super charming, and I think it's not traditional in Denmark that you will have these beautiful cutouts, and it really appealed to me. It gave it a bit more appeal in terms of our Victorian style. And as I say, you don't always have to have the perfect mix of errors. You can indeed mix things and make it feel really, really nice and homely. So this chair has a really interesting story. It is from a clearance of Ranulph Furnace, the World Explorer's home, and they got this chair in there, and it is very, very antique, and it definitely has seen better days, but I think it brings so much character to this chair. You know, why would you want to do anything to it? It's so beautifully hand embroidered, and I don't know what kind of stitches these are, but they're absolutely fantastic. And it is here as a decorative piece. Sometimes I stack books on it to make it look very designerish, and other times I just like to have it like this, but I think it really does something to the room. And one trick when you're designing your rooms is to actually always have enough chairs. A good rule of thumb when it comes to chairs in your home is as many people as your house can sleep. That many chairs you got to have, because when you have a full house, everybody can actually sit down. Thanks for following my home tour. If you found it insightful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and go ahead and watch this video where I'll take you thrifting so you can see my process for finding thrifted vintage decor items for my home and also for your home. I will see you there.